Get started. Welcome to Accounting 2101. It's great to be here with all of you. Let's just kind of get started with a quick show of hands. How many of you are already sure you're an accounting major? Raise your hands really high. No, really high. Got a few here, got a few. Awesome, that's great. How many of you are marketing majors? Management, finance, MIS, econ. Okay. All of you who just raised your hands who didn't say accounting, I have to give you a little fair disclosure here. My objective in this class is to convince all of you that you should major in accounting. Now, if I don't succeed at that, I'm hoping that at least you'll gain an appreciation for how valuable accounting is for any kind of business major. And we'll talk a lot more about that as the day goes on. All right, so to get started today, we're going to start off with some introductions. I'll first of all introduce myself and tell you a little bit about who I am. Then we're going to just jump right into a little case study and hopefully have some fun with that. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking more about what is accounting and then getting into some of the logistics of the course. Just to give you a warning, we're going to be here pretty much the full class today, so don't expect to leave early. And please don't start folding up your desks and putting things away because we're going to pretty much be here the whole day today. All right? So let's begin with a little introduction to me. So just some background. I actually grew up in California, did my bachelor's degree at San Jose State. Then I worked for a small CPA firm in California and decided I wanted to go back and get a master's in accounting. So I went to Brigham Young University for my master's. And by this time I was married. We already had a kid. And so I'd already been working. I had a bachelor's degree, right? So you think I could maybe get a job. So I get there, and I was going around putting in resumes with all the CPA firms, hoping to get some work so I could support myself during the master's program. Couldn't find anything. So eventually I showed up at Domino's Pizza. I walk in, I hand the guy my resume, and he looks at it and he's like, dude, you're overqualified. It's like, well, I got to work. So he actually gave me a job. I ended up delivering pizzas for a while, but I really was kind of desperate to find something better than delivering pizzas with a bachelor's degree. And so I started calling around, and I called this guy at the local community college, and I said, hey, I've got a degree in accounting. I've got some experience. Could you use some help, like grading papers, whatever? And he said, well, not really, but do you want to teach a class for us? It's like, yeah, I would love to teach a class for you. And so I kind of just stumbled into teaching and absolutely fell in love with it. So I taught 4 semesters at this junior college. I also got to teach one of the summers that I was at Brigham Young University. Absolutely fell in love with teaching. I actually learned that I love teaching accounting more than I like doing accounting. And so I decided to go on and get a PhD and actually become a professor. Well, guess where I came? University of Georgia. So I'm an alum of University of Georgia. I was here in the PhD program from 1991 to 1995. When I left UGA, but we had one kid in the bachelor's program, second kid in the master's program. While we were here at Georgia, 2 more. So when we left here, we actually had 4 kids leaving the PhD program. All right, my first teaching job was at a place up in Ohio called Case Western. I was there for 5 years. And then I had the opportunity to return to one of my alma maters. So I went back to Brigham Young University, where I taught for 15 years and had a great experience there. I'm going to share a little bit more. But during the time I was at BYU, we had the chance to go do some pretty cool things. So I taught in a study abroad program in Italy twice. So spring semester 2007 and fall semester 2011. And I'll show you some pictures in just a second. It was quite an experience. And also, I visited the University of Michigan and taught there 2013-14. And over the years, I've also taught a course every summer out in Santa Clara. And finally, had an opportunity to come back to my other alma mater. So came back to UGA in 2015, and I'm really excited to be here. My first love is teaching this class, so I love being here with you. I'm really looking forward to a great semester. Usually when I teach a class, if it's like 30 or 40 students, I'll have the students kind of go around and introduce themselves. It would take like 3 days for all of you to introduce yourselves. But I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you. My goal by the end of the semester is to know every one of you by name. And we'll kind of see how that goes as the semester goes along. So, all right, so that's a little bit about me. Oh, actually, some pictures. I was going to show you some pictures. So, I told you by the time we finished the PhD program, we had 4 kids, right? Well, that wasn't the end. So we had, so I always wanted a daughter. And so we had boy, 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 and then another boy. And my wife said, hey, we're done, man. We've got a basketball team. We're only capable of producing male offspring. But, I really wanted a daughter, so I just kept kind of coaxing her. And eventually, a few years later, she agreed to have one more child. And we eventually had the daughter. So this is our family. It's starting to grow now. So we've got, as I said, 5 boys and 1 girl. So my oldest son is married, and he has 2 boys expecting a 3rd child. Second son married, 2 girls expecting a 3rd child. 3rd son married, no kids. He's a CPA, by the way. Well, he was an accounting major, recently graduated. We've got 2 other sons in college right now, and our daughter is a senior at Oconee High School. So that's a little bit about our family. And we have a dog, too. I told you about the experience we had in Italy. First time we went, we had all 6 kids with us, ranging from senior in high school to kindergarten. So it was quite a spread. We had grandkids are the best. I just wanted to say that. So, but here's a picture of our family in Italy in 2007. And how many have you ever traveled in Europe? Have you ever been over there? Amazing, right? So first thing I want to say is living in Italy, it means Europe is your backyard. So we literally, any day I wasn't teaching, my wife was out there with the car revved up. We would just jump in the car and go, and had an amazing experience there. But it is kind of hard logistically to travel around Europe with 8 people. So it was a fun experience, but quite an adventure, really. So we took the opportunity 5 years later to go back, this time only 3 kids, much more manageable, and we had a fantastic experience. So being a professor is not a bad gig. So some of you may start thinking, maybe I should be a professor too, because I'll get to do some cool things. All right. Oh, last thing about me. I always had so my hobby is doing triathlons, and I always had this bucket list item to do a full-length Ironman. And so 2011 was the year that I did that. So my brother-in-law and I did the full-length Ironman. And it's a little bit deceiving. If you look up there, we didn't finish in 5 hours and 33 minutes. It was 15 hours and 33 minutes, but we finished it. All right, so that's a little bit about me. I look forward to getting to know all of you as well. All right, so we're going to start an accounting class. So first question, how many of you have either a parent or maybe an aunt or uncle or somebody who's an accountant? Anybody? Okay. So what do you typically think of when you think of accounting? You kind of picture the stereotype, right? This little guy in the back room with really thick glasses and a little visor and a pocket protector, doing some calculations or something. That's kind of sometimes the stereotype, and I think an inaccurate stereotype that people have of what accounting is. For those of you who have mom or dad who are CPAs, is that what you think of them? Not so much, right? Not so much. All right. Well, so what is accounting? Any ideas? What do you think of when you think of accounting? So, what do you think? So I asked my daughter the other day, I said, hey, would you think about maybe doing accounting when you get in college? And she said, oh, no, Dad, I hate math. Well, it turns out accounting is not about math, right? We actually do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Nothing more than that. So accounting is not really about math, but it's about really learning what we call the language of business. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we're going to launch right into a little case study. I have to sort of give you the bad news right now. So as you all walk in and say, hey, bro, and you're sitting with your friends and everybody's having a good time today, this is probably the last time that you're going to be able to sit where you want. So most days when you come to class, you're going to walk in, there's going to be a little sheet, you're going to pick up a little handout, and it's going to tell you where you're going to sit that day. You're going to sit in a different group every single day. So look around the room. Probably throughout the semester, we're going to meet 29 times. You're going to have the opportunity to get to know just about everybody in this room at one point or another. So what we'll do today, though, we're going to just do it kind of informally. So your group today is whoever you're sitting next to, so the kind of people around you. So what I want you to do is take a couple of minutes and introduce yourselves, and then I'm going to introduce the little case study we're going to work on today. So take just a minute to introduce yourselves. Go ahead. Okay, guys, let's get started on it. So, a question for you. How many of you are freshmen this year? Okay, any sophomores? Okay. Hey, so you guys are experienced, right? The sophomores have been around a while. But you're in college. You made it. Congratulations. Can you remember back to the days when you were in kindergarten, maybe first grade? Can you remember that far back? One of the things that you probably used on a daily basis was your set of crayons, right? You might have done a little coloring or drawing or something like that. So the company that makes most crayons that most of us use, Crayola Company. So this little case is Crayola. So it turns out, there's a true story, Crayola has actually a plant where they manufacture the dyes to make the colorful crayons that you have. And so this is located in the Ivory Coast in West Africa. And they have a manufacturing facility where they actually produce the crayons located in Mumbai, India, not Italy. Mumbai, India. And so the logistical issue they have is that they produce the dyes in West Africa and they have to transport them all the way to India to actually produce the crayons, right? Well, as it so happens, this is kind of a long trip, and these are some treacherous waters down here. So once upon a time, there was this shipment of dyes that were going on a boat on their way to the manufacturing facility, and it turns out that the boat was hijacked by some Somali pirates. So it kind of leads to a big problem here, right? The dyes were shipped, but they never made it to their destination. And so it kind of created some problems here. So what I want you to do is take just a second in your groups and think about the problem here. This company thought they were going to receive these dyes to be able to produce, and by the way, it costs a lot of money, right? So who's going to be responsible for taking the hit, the loss, for the lost dyes that were supposed to make it in the ship and everything else? Who's going to be responsible for this? So take just a couple minutes in your groups, talk about it, and then we'll come back and talk about it as a group. Go ahead. All right, guys, let's talk about it. So in your groups, you probably have come up with some ideas. So who's going to take the loss? Don't be shy here. Raise your hands if you just want to volunteer what your group said. How about you guys? What did your group think?
Whoever's responsible for the goods in transit or the merchandise in transit.
So whoever's responsible in transit, right? So is that going to be seller or buyer? What do you think? Seller? Okay, so this group thinks the seller. Why would the seller be responsible?
Because they were responsible for getting the dye to India.
Right, so somebody made an order and said, would you please send us the dye? And it never made it there, so they should be responsible, right? Did anybody come up with a different answer? I want you to think outside the box here. Who might be responsible? What do you think?
We said like Mumbai would be responsible because, or like they would take the loss because they've already made the payment to the goods.
Okay, so now we had to make some assumptions here, right? But if they've already purchased the goods, they've already made payment or whatever, so maybe they're going to lose out, right? Okay, did anybody think about any other third parties that might be involved? We got the seller, we got the buyer. Who else might be involved? Over here.
If
there's a separate shipping company that the seller is paying to ship the dye to India, they could be responsible.
Okay, now this is a good point. I didn't give you a lot of information, right? So it could be that, for example, Crayola is the seller and somebody else is the buyer, or maybe someone else is the seller, Crayola is the buyer, and then of course they may have hired somebody else to do the shipping for them, right? So if there's a freight company that's responsible for getting the goods from the seller to the buyer, maybe that freight company is responsible, right? Okay, anybody, I saw some other hands over here. Yes? Yes? Ah! Okay, let me shake your hand. I've been doing this case for years, and no one's ever said the insurance company, right? So if you know you're going to be shipping some goods around South Africa, and it's kind of a long trip, don't you think you might want some insurance just in case something happens? Maybe the boat sinks or something, right? And so if you can offload the risk to an insurance company, that way you don't have to stress too much about it, right? So now, this whole story sort of depends on the facts and the circumstances. I didn't give you a lot of facts. And so different groups made different assumptions. Had they made payment already? Who was responsible, right? And so it all has to do with contracts, right? And when you negotiate these deals, you're going to set up the contracts and you're going to specify who's responsible. So I drew a little picture on the board, and I apologize because we don't have a lot of board space here. But I just said, assume this is the seller. Assume this is the buyer, and this is my attempt to draw a ship, okay? But the question is, who's responsible? Well, when the buyer and the seller negotiate the contract for the deal, what they're going to do is they're going to specify some terms. And I forgot to write it on the board, but there's part of the terms that are specified. It says FOB, which stands for free on board. When are the goods free of the responsibility of the seller? So, for example, if they had specified in the contract FOB shipping point, as soon as they leave the seller's loading docks, now they're free of responsibility. So whose responsibility during the transportation time? The buyer, right? Or if the contract had specified FOB destination, free on board, when it arrives at the buyer's loading docks, then who's responsible during shipping? That would be the seller, right? Well, of course, again, there might be a third-party freight company. There might be an insurance company involved. It all depends on the contracts, right? It depends on those kind of details. So the beauty of accounting is it's going to help us understand these very complex, sometimes business transactions, and understand how it's going to be reflected in the financial statements of the companies involved. All right, so we'll spend a lot of time throughout the semester talking about real business situations and why accounting is important in all of these situations. So my question that I started to ask you earlier, what is accounting is my next question, sorry. Who are the stakeholders involved? So in this particular example that we just did, the stakeholders were the buyer, the seller, potentially a freight company, potentially an insurance company, right? When we talk about accounting information, when a company's put out their accounting reports, who cares about those things? Who are the stakeholders? Can you name some of them? Who might want to know about a company's performance during a period? Shareholders, right? If we invest in a company, we better know how they're performing. So shareholders is an important one. Who else? Yes? Employees. If you work for a company, wouldn't you like to know that when I go back to work tomorrow, the company's still going to be there? They're not going to go bankrupt? That's a great one. Who else? Who are the other stakeholders that care? Yes? Okay, financing companies. If I'm going to borrow money from the bank, then they're going to care very much about my financial performance. Am I able to pay back the money that I borrow from them, right? So we got shareholders, we got lenders, we've got employees. Who else might care about how a company's performing?
Possibly other rival companies.
Exactly, your competition, right? So you're going to be watching to see how your competitors are doing, get a feel for what they're doing to maybe understand what you need to do in order to be competitive. Who else? Who else might care? Consumers care, right? People that buy your products. The government. All right. So last year, the government passed, the Congress passed this major Tax Reform Act, which totally changed the way companies are going to approach a lot of transactions. So having the government involved, now there are different branches of the government, so one of them would be taxes. That's the one I brought up. Who else in the government might care about how a company is performing? Regulatory agencies like, can you name any of them? Yes? The IRS, that's one of them. They care about your taxes, right? Who else? Which other government agencies would care? Yes? The SEC, which stands for the Securities and Exchange Commission. They're the corporate watchdogs. They want to make sure that companies aren't misleading shareholders, misleading the public, right? So absolutely, those are the kind of people that care. So when you talk about stakeholders, we have businesses, our own business, our competitors. We have current or potential investors, which we've also talked about. We have policymakers. So we talked about the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Later, as time goes on, we'll talk more about who makes the rules for accounting. Well, that's the Financial Accounting Standards Board. Congress, sometimes they pass new laws that affect how business is being conducted. We have the accounting profession, so we have a lot of the firms that are out there that do audits and tax work and consulting work for companies. And then finally, we have weird people like me, academics. So there are lots of different constituents out there, stakeholders, who care very much about how companies are performing. And depending on the transaction, depending on the situation, like our Crayola die example, those different groups of constituents or stakeholders are going to be grouped together and interacting as every single transaction takes place. All right, so the question I keep asking you, what is accounting? So if you had to define it, what would you say accounting is? I know there are a couple of people here that I've talked to before. What is accounting? What do you think? Okay, it's a social science. What else is it? What else is accounting?
Rules and terms of business transactions.
So it has a lot to do with rules and terms of how business transactions are going to be accounted for and taken care of. Yes, what else? The word I'm looking for here has to do with this. It's the language of business. So accounting is the language of business, right? How many of you, to get into college, UGA, had to take a foreign language? How many of you took Spanish, French, German, Russian, Italian? So all of you have probably experienced taking a foreign language, right? Learning how to communicate with people in another culture. Well, accounting is the language that we communicate with in business. So like I said at the beginning, I'm going to try to convince all of you to major in accounting. But if you're going to be a finance major, you better know the language. You better be able to speak accounting. If you're going to be a marketing major, a management major, an insurance, real estate, whatever your major is, you better be able to speak this language. All right, so in the past, I think a lot of people just kind of dreaded taking their accounting class, and I got to do this. I'm really hoping that we'll have a good experience here, that it will be fun for you, and that every single person here, whether or not I convince you to major in accounting, you'll leave with a greater appreciation, and that you might want to take some more accounting classes so you can be even better at real estate, or even better at finance, or whatever your chosen major is. All right, so it's the language of business. It's how we communicate these economic transactions and describe to people how our company is performing. So it really has a lot to do with every single aspect of a business. All right, we're going to spend the rest of the day, and I promise you we're going to be here pretty much till the end. We're going to talk about logistics of how the class runs. One of the things I want to just emphasize, you can be successful in this class, but it's going to require you to be here every day, and it's going to require you to put in some significant effort. So I'm going to try to explain the expectations today. Once you understand the expectations, hopefully every single person here can be successful with the class. All right. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the syllabus. But before you come to class next Tuesday, so I sent you all an email the other day. How many of you got the email from me? I should probably reverse that. If you're sitting in this room and you did not get an email from me, please raise your hand. Okay, I need you to come and talk to me after class if you have not already received an email, because I sent you, first of all, a copy of the syllabus, but some very important instructions about things you need to do to get set up to be able to participate in the class. Okay, so we'll talk afterward. All right, so we'll talk about the syllabus, we'll talk about academic integrity, and I'll try to describe to you the process you need to kind of go through to stay up on this class to be successful. All right, so first of all, at the top of the syllabus, if you haven't already looked at it, you'll find my contact information. And so that's me, my email address. I'm located just across the street in Moore Rooker Hall. And probably the more important person for you is my TA. I've got two TAs working for me this semester. The first one is LaShandra Bedell. And what's kind of cool about this, the very first time I taught this class at UGA, she was in my class. And she was very successful, and she's fantastic. She understands the ins and outs of this class better than anybody. if you get stuck on something, you can't figure out how to log into what's called My Business Course, or you can't figure out how to turn in a homework assignment or whatever, my suggestion is, first of all, go to her. And hopefully she'll be able to answer your questions for you. In addition to teaching this class, I'm also the department head in accounting. So I'm often kind of swamped with emails, so I'll try my best to respond quickly. But if you want a quick response, you may sometimes want to just contact LaShundra directly. All right, we're going to spend more time talking about this later, but one of the most important aspects of this class is we have set up what's called the accounting lab. Now, most of you think, hey, I took chemistry and we had a lab. Well, it's a little different place. This is a place where you can get help with what you're working on, where you can get answers to questions, help as you're working on homework, help as you're preparing for a quiz, help as you're preparing for an exam. So I want to really encourage all of you to make the accounting lab a big part of what you do in this class. Oh, I forgot to change the time. So I had a meeting yesterday with the head graduate assistant who's helping to run this accounting lab. They're going to try to expand the hours. So typically in the past, we would go 10 a.m. till about 5 p.m. And what they're going to try to do this semester as an experiment is expand the hours. So some of you like to do homework in the evenings. They're going to try to keep it open. I don't know if it's till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, but to keep it open a little later in the evening. So, and on Fridays, by the way, nobody ever shows up after 3 o'clock. So actually, it should be Monday through Thursday. It'll be like 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then on Fridays, they'll probably shut it down around 3 p.m. Okay, but I want to encourage you, hey, make that part of your routine. Like our class meets Tuesday and Thursday mornings. So maybe every Monday, Wednesday afternoon, you just have it in your schedule. I'm going to go hang out at the accounting lab for a half hour. Sit down, do your homework, and then if you have questions, you can say, hey, by the way, what does this mean? Can you help me understand why do we do it this way? So those graduate assistants are there to help you. They won't do your homework for you, but they'll be glad to answer questions for you. So sometimes it's just nice. Instead of spinning your wheels for 20 minutes on something, you just ask a quick question and move on. So it might help you to be more efficient. So really strongly encourage you to take advantage of that very important resource that is there for you. All right, so this is our textbook, Financial Accounting for Undergrads. In the email that I sent you, I described how to get the book. So first thing I want to tell you about this, I feel bad sometimes as an instructor because some of the textbooks are like $200 or more. The one thing I like about this book, it's super cheap. It's like $50, $65, something like that. But let me make it clear, you do not want to buy this book used, because when you buy the book, it comes with access to My Business Course, which we'll talk about in a second. This is where we turn everything in. This is where we do everything. So if you've already purchased a used book, you can actually go in and get an access code to use My Business Course, but it's probably cheaper just to buy the book new. Okay, so they should have them in the bookstore, and you can order them online. All right, so when I sent you the email, it gave you a temporary access code to be able to set up your account in My Business Course. That's only good for about 2 weeks. So as soon as you get your book, when it physically gets here, you have to put in your own access code so that you can then use My Business Course throughout the rest of the semester. There's one other thing I wanted to show you. Hopefully I have it in here. So I want to encourage you to think about making an investment. So one of the things that we use in the last part of this class is a financial calculator. And I know some of you may have transferred in, like you were a science major and you transferred into the business school or something like that, so maybe you already have a fancy calculator. But what's important about this calculator, it has 5 special keys right across here. These are the present value functions that we're going to use, and especially for midterm 3, the last third of this course, we're going to use these just about every single day. It's a very good investment. If you're going to major in business anyway, you're going to take finance classes, and some of your other classes will use present value calculations. So it's a really good investment. It costs about $30. This is the one I use. I usually recommend it. It's the Texas Instruments BA2 Plus. HP has one that's pretty good as well. They kind of have the same things. I mean, practical purposes, I downloaded an app to my phone, and that's fine. You can usually do your calculations on that, but you can't use your phone on the exam. So that's why I just would encourage you, if you're going to be a business major, to think about investing in a financial calculator. It's something that you're going to find very valuable. Down the road, you're going to have like a brother or sister thinking about buying a car, or you're thinking about buying a condo, and you want to figure out what are the payments going to be on this thing. And so doing present value kind of calculations is something that's really valuable, and you'll be able to use this calculator to do those kind of things. All right, so it's not required, But we have some ways of working around it. But I will tell you, it's going to make your life much easier, and you'll be much more efficient on the exams if you have a financial calculator. All right, so that's kind of the resources that you need to think about for the class. All right, the accounting lab I've already mentioned. I just want to tell you again, this is a great way to be successful in the class, is rely on those graduate students to help answer questions as they come up. And now, you need to learn to be independent, of course, but sometimes it's more efficient if you just say, I'm going to stop in the accounting lab every Monday, Wednesday, 2:30 in the afternoon, or 7:30 at night. Whatever time, you're going to find out when the busy times are, like peak times and non-peak times. What's a good time? You can just sit down in the accounting lab and do your homework. So, encourage you to think about doing that. Grading. This is really important. Has anybody fallen asleep yet? If the person next to you is asleep, wake them up. Okay, I want you to understand what the expectations are in this class. A lot of times people, they take the first midterm, they just kind of get caught off guard, they perform really poorly. And what I want you to understand is you can still be successful in this class if you'll just stick with me, okay? Just hang in the class. Even if you bomb the first midterm, keep on coming, because we have a way for you to kind of redeem yourself. So this class has 3 midterms. They're all worth 100 points. But the beauty is we also have this optional final exam. It's optional, it's comprehensive, but whatever grade you get on the final, if you just choose to take it, will replace your lowest midterm. So let's just say the first midterm catches you off guard. You get kind of a bad score. Let's just say you get a 50 on the first midterm. Well, a lot of kids are like, I'm out of here. They drop the class. It used to be that Accounting 2101 was had the highest drop rate of any class on campus. And we're trying to turn that around. And so I just want to tell you, this final exam, the option of taking the final to replace your lowest midterm, makes all the difference in the world. Last semester, I think, had a drop rate of about 3.5%. And some amazing statistics. Let me look them up here for you. So last semester, 88% of people that took the final did better than they did on one of their previous midterms. 75% improved by at least a half letter grade in the class, their overall course grade. 22% stayed the same, and only 3% went down. So it's a very valuable opportunity for you to be able to take the final. So again, all the people that are looking at me right now, I want to see you sitting here on the last day of class. Don't drop the class, just hang with me. You can be successful if you'll work hard. It's going to take a lot of work, but you can be successful. All right, so we have 3 midterms. We have this optional final. Hey, by the way, after each midterm, I kind of add all the points. I do a calculation and say, here's your grade. If I were assigning grades today, here's the grade you'd have. So when you get to the 3rd midterm, you take that midterm, we grade them really fast, and I'll give you a grade. So if you got an A- and you're happy with an A-, then you don't have to take the final. If you got your B+ and you're happy with that, no problem. But if you're sitting at a C- or a D, then you probably ought to consider studying hard, taking that final, because you have an opportunity to make your grade better. And that's what the statistics I just gave you. People tend to do better if they work at it. All right, what else do we have in the class? Homework. So I require you to do homework, because the only way you'll learn accounting is actually doing things. You can't just theoretically sit around thinking about it. You have to practice it. So we do have homework that's required. You have to turn it in. We have what are called in-class quizzes. So actually, let me put it this way. So homework is done in MBC. I'll show you that in a second. We also have what we call reading assessment quizzes. So reading assessment quizzes, they require you read the chapter, and just to kind of make sure you understand the big points that were in the chapter, you do a little quick assessment quiz before you come to class. They're very simple questions. It's always 5 questions, and as long as you've paid attention to your reading, you should do fine on those. It's just giving you some accountability so that you read before you come to class. So those are the 2 things that you do before class. You do So the first day we start a chapter, you'll read the chapter, do a reading assessment quiz. Then you'll come to class, we'll talk about it, we'll practice, we'll do things in class together. Then you'll go home and do the homework. And then you come back and we'll move on to the next topic. The other 2 things that we have, so this says class participation. Starting on Tuesday, I take attendance every single day. So when you walk into class, you're going to pull out your cell phone or your tablet or your computer, and we're going to take a quiz on Kahoot. Some of you have probably done that before. But every single day you want to be on time. So I'm giving you an incentive. It's hard to get up for an 8 o'clock class, right? For those of you who are sophomores, you can explain it to the freshmen, right? But it's hard to get up for an 8 o'clock class. So I'm giving you an incentive to be here on time every single day. When it's 8 o'clock, we're going to launch right into a Kahoot quiz. If you have any kind of device that can hook up to the Wi-Fi, cell phone, tablet, computer, you're in good shape. The Kahoot quiz at the beginning of class does two things. It takes attendance, that's what I call participation. And it also is going to ask you 5 easy questions about what we covered in the previous class. So usually what people do, they show up 10 minutes early. They pull out their notes and review their notes from the last class. I'm not asking detailed calculation kind of questions. What are the 5 biggest points we talked about last time? And if you paid attention and took some notes, then you should be able to do well on these quizzes. So again, I'm giving you an incentive to show up and to at least refresh your memory on what we covered last time so you're ready to hit the ground running with what we're covering that day. All right? So just to kind of give you an overview of how it works, we're going to cover the whole book. There's 13 chapters and 2 appendices, and we're going to cover every last bit of it. So there's some responsibility here for you to understand everything that's in the book. And we're going to follow the same pattern every single time. So here's how it works. You read the chapter on your own. You're going to do a quick reading assessment quiz just to make sure you understood what are the main points I read about. Not usually calculations, but just the big ideas. Then you're going to come to class and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to do these group exercises that we did today. We're going to do things like that every single day. So when you walk in the door, either side, you'll pick up a handout. And on one side of the handout is going to tell you what group you're in. The other side of the handout is going to have little exercises that we're going to work in class. Okay, so we're going to come and practice these things. We're going to help each other learn, right? It's a group kind of environment. Everybody's going to help everybody else to succeed. Then you're going to go home and you're going to do some homework. Now, we've practiced it a little bit together. Now, go home and see if you can do it on your own. You got the accounting lab to support you in that. Then you come back to class and we're ready to go again. We're going to take in-class quizzes, as I said, based on what did we cover in class last time. All right, so that's kind of the process. 3 times during the semester, we're going to take a midterm. Midterms usually cover 4 to 5 chapters. And so I always give a practice exam so you can kind of help make sure you're up to the level of the degree of rigor that you're going to see on the real exam. And that makes a huge difference. Now I'm going to give you a little warning. Midterm 1 catches a lot of people by surprise. Please don't wait till the night before the exam to look at that practice exam. You better be looking at it like a week in advance because a lot of people have to take the practice midterm once and they have to go back and study because they missed some things. They have to maybe make sure they understand. And then they'll take it again and they'll still find some holes and then sometimes they have to take it again. So those practice midterms, sometimes you got to be able to work through them like 3 different times until you feel confident in the material. Okay? Let's see here. So here's the learning cycle that we're going to go through several times during the class. So every day when you come to class, I will have given you a reading assignment. So you read it before you come to class. You'll do your RA quiz to make sure you understood what you read about. Then you're going to come to class and we'll learn and practice together. Then you'll go home, do the homework on your own with some help from the accounting lab. Then we'll take a brief quiz every single time you come to class about what we covered last time. Hopefully that prepares you so you can be ready to take the exam. Okay, and we'll go through this with usually 4 or 5 chapters for each midterm. And if you'll follow this process, if you'll show up to class every single day, just commit yourself. I'll always do the reading on time. I'll do my reading assessment quizzes. When I have homework to do, I'll do it on time. If you just stay up with this class, it's not hard. For people that tell you this class is like really, really hard, it's usually because they're lazy, right? If you're willing to put the time in, then you're going to be able to be successful. Okay, so that's the process for the course. Now, I want you to mark these dates down. It's in the syllabus, but the exam dates are already set. Let me just be very clear. We don't take the exams during class time. We take them in the evenings. Okay, that's the whole accounting program is like that. Our exams tend to take a little longer, and we just can't finish them in an hour and 15 minutes. And so I want you to mark these dates on your calendars. So the first midterm is on Monday night, February 11th. The second one is on, Wednesday. On Wednesday, March 27th. The third one is on Monday night, April 29th. That's right before finals. So the third midterm, we're taking it really right at the end of the class. And then we're going to grade like crazy after that third midterm. And I'll say, here's your grade on the exam. And by the way, if I were assigning grades today, here's your grade in the class. And if you're happy with that B+, you're done. But then if you decide you want to better your grade, then a week later, on Tuesday, May 6th, that's when we'll take our optional final. Okay, so mark these down. Let me just tell you, basically, there are no makeup exams. So if you have a job, then you need to arrange in advance with your boss or talk to some other coworker to exchange shifts so that you can be here on these nights for the exams. Because if you don't show up, like if you miss midterm number 2, then it's basically like you got a 0 on it, right? So then what's your option? You got to take the final, and that's going to replace your 0. Now, there are some extreme examples where I've had to work with students in the past, but generally speaking, that's when the exams were given. You need to make arrangements to be here. Okay, if you have questions on that, we can talk after class. All right, we'll talk more about exams as we get close to midterm number 1. All right, homework. So homework is completed and turned in what's called My Business course. I do not have an ELC class account for this class. We won't even use ELC. We're going to use MBC, My Business course. So again, the email I sent y'all before the class started, you hopefully have all set that up. That's what you're going to use to turn in homework, right? So you do the homework and answer the questions and submit it there. We do drop your lowest 2 homework grades, so if you miss one, you forget, or you just have a bad day and do poorly on it, it's not the end of the world. We are going to drop your lowest 2 scores. Here's another big one. We have 2 what I call special projects that are completed outside of class. These are group projects. Sometimes the best way to learn something is actually doing it, and if you're working with other people, you can help one another to understand it better. So the first group project, we actually do it twice. So we're going to go through chapter 2, and you'll do the group project. It's kind of learning how to analyze business transactions, and you're just going to use kind of a loose framework that we call using the accounting equation to do that. Then we're going to and then you'll prepare financial statements. Then you're going to loop back and do that same project, exact same transactions again, once we impose a little bit more structure in chapter 3. So the first group project, you're going to do it twice and turn it in as a group. All right? Then at the very end of the semester, the last week of class, we do the second group project, and you'll be assigned a different group for each of these projects. And this is kind of a capstone project for the whole class. We're doing what we call financial statement analysis, evaluating a couple of companies and making a recommendation on which company you would suggest that people invest in. Okay? So again, we'll do that after chapter 3, right at the end of the class. All right, in-class quizzes, as I mentioned, when you walk into class every single day, that's where we're going to take those in-class quizzes. We realize that some days you're going to miss the bus, your car won't start, you get sick, whatever. And so we drop 3 of those. So, you have a few freebies, but you don't want to miss class. This is, if you don't think you can get up and come to class every day, this is not the class for you. Because I require you to be here, be on time every single day. And if you'll do that, I promise you're going to have a good experience. All right, so how does it work? So on a typical day, I would suggest getting here like 15 minutes early, 10 minutes early. You're going to walk through the door, and right when you walk in, you'll pick up your handout. And this handout has an alphabetical list. You're going to find yourself, so, here's my name. My name's Aiden Killer. I'm in group 34. Or my name is, I can't read this, but anyway, I'm this person. I'm in group 19. So that'll tell you what group you're in, right? Then you're going to round the corner here, and you're going to look at the screen, and you're going to see this map. This map is a map of our room. Okay, so when I'm looking, so we're all here looking at this map, right? Here's the left side. Y'all raise your left hand. This is the left side of the room. Everybody raise your right hand. This is the right side of the room, right? And then, of course, the center. So these people here are in the center of the room. So what's your name?
Sage.
Sage? All right, so Sage is sitting right here. Do y'all see Sage? He's sitting in that seat right there. What group is Sage in today? Group 3. He didn't know it, but you're in group 3 too. Do you know that? Okay, so these people over here, you guys are sitting right here. Right here. This is you guys right here. So you're group what? Oh, sorry. What? You're in the front here. So you're right here. Sorry, so these 3 people up here, right here, you're group what?
6.
Group 6. All right, sorry. These guys back here, where are you sitting? You're right there. What group are you? Group 40. Does that make sense to everybody? So when you come to class Tuesday morning, you're going to walk through the door. You're going to pick up the alphabetical sheet here. You're going to look up your name alphabetically, and it's going to tell you what group you're in. You're going to look up on the map and say, okay, I'm in group 36. Where should I sit? Group 36, you're right back there, just across the aisle, right? So that's how it works every single day. Now, once you sit down, you showed up a few minutes late, you found your seat, you're going to pull up your device, your phone, your tablet, whatever, and you're going to log into the Kahoot quiz. So up on the screen, on one side I'll have the map. On the other side of the screen, I'm going to have the Kahoot login page. You'll go to kahoot.it, just open up a browser, go to kahoot.it, and you'll enter the PIN number for that day. So 4540586, that's your PIN number for the day. You enter it, and then you're in. Now, you have to identify yourself. This is really important. I had a student last semester. She didn't know her own student ID. She was putting in the wrong student ID all semester. So guys, if you want to get credit for showing up, make sure you know. So pull out your own student ID card and get the number off of there. You have to know your UGA student ID number because that's how we identify you. Does that make sense? Now, one other thing I'm going to point out. When you look on the back of your student ID card, there's actually 10 digits. There's like 9 and then an extra one. We're just using the first 9 digits of your code. Does that make sense? All right. So you find where you're seated based on this alphabetical list. You go sit in your group, and then you log into the Kahoot quiz, and it's going to be 5 questions based on the previous class. Does that make sense? Okay. We'll do one just for practice on Tuesday. It won't count against your grade, but it's my way of taking attendance. If you don't show up Tuesday, even though it won't count as a quiz score, it's going to keep track of your attendance so that I know that you showed up that day. Does that make sense? All right. So that's pretty much how we do it. Again, reading assessment quizzes. Anytime you read a chapter, you'll log into My Business course. You'll do a quick reading assessment quiz. They're due at 7 a.m. So class starts at 8. I want you to show up, right? So if you turn it in the morning, you still have an hour to get to class. I will say this. It's probably wise to plan to do it the day before because sometimes your internet goes down or for whatever reason. Don't wait till the last possible minute, right? Now we're gonna drop your 2 lowest RA quizzes, but it's better just to do them because it's pretty easy points. I think most people end up with 25 out of 25 on this. You get to repeat it more than once, so if you do it once and you mess up a couple of questions, you can go back in and answer them again and hopefully get them right the second time. Does that make sense? So if you miss something, it's like, oh shoot, I better go look that up in the chapter because somehow I missed it. All right, any questions about reading assessment quizzes? Okay, class participation, again, class participation means you showed up, I'll take attendance, and the other thing I expect is when we do little group exercises that you participate. Guys, it doesn't help you to come here and sleep, right? If you're working together and you understand it, you're going to help your other group members. Some days you'll come in and you totally have it. Other days you'll come in and you're kind of feeling lost. Hopefully the people sitting around you are going to be able to help you get it. The idea is we're all helping each other to get this material. Does that make sense? All right. So again, this is just reviewing. This is the process we go through. If you'll stick with the plan, if you'll kind of show up every day and do all of these steps, there is no reason that you cannot be successful in this class. Just going through this cycle over and over again as we get ready for each midterm. All right, any questions? All right, we still got a good 25 minutes left. I'm going to explain how the syllabus works, and I'm going to show you MBC, and we're going to do a practice RA quiz just to kind of give you a feel for what it looks like. Does that make sense? All right, so on your syllabus, at the very end, the last 3 pages of the syllabus, it gives you the schedule for this class. So there are 29 class sessions, and so if you look at the session number, like for today, we're doing a course overview, so there's nothing required to be turned in or anything, so it's a freebie. But when you come back next Tuesday, so January 15th, then what's the topic? It's an introduction to accounting. We're going to be focusing on the target company. So every day we'll try to have real companies that we talk about. What do you need to do before you show up on Tuesday? Read the syllabus. You are responsible to read it the whole way through and make sure you understand everything about it. Also in Chapter 1, you should read pages 2 through 21. And also in the appendix, there's a few pages to read there as well. And then you're going to do the practice RA quiz. I want you to try it without any points on the line. So you're going to actually do the practice RA quiz just to make sure you understand how MBC works. It won't count in your grade, but I want you to have that experience before you come to class next time. Does that make sense? Okay, now normally I try not to have two things due on the same day. There are, most of the time, like for example, when you're doing chapter 3, you'll do the reading assessment quiz that day, then you'll do the homework the next day, right? Here's chapter 4. You do the reading assessment quiz one day, then you do the homework the next day. That's how I like to do it. In the beginning, the introductory material, it overlaps a little bit. So like not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, you're going to actually have the reading assessment quiz on chapter 2, but you're turning in the homework from the previous day. Okay, so there are a couple of times where we have them doubled up like that, but normally we won't. All right, the last thing I want to point out here on the far right, so everything in gray, this must be done before you come to class on that day. The items over here on the right are just kind of extra things that might help you. The e-lectures, if you go on, I'll show you in a second on NBC, it's somebody talking about the chapter. It's just somebody, they'll show you slides and they're talking about them. Kind of boring. So if you miss a class, I mean, that's the next best thing. But I don't find those to be as useful. But this far right-hand column, I think, is actually very useful. So it's called the guided examples. And the authors of the textbook, basically, they'll walk you through a problem. And they're showing you in an Excel spreadsheet, okay, so we're taking these numbers, we're adding these up, we're moving these over here, and they're kind of showing you how to do the problems. That's very helpful before you try to do a homework problem on your own to see somebody else work one for you. So I would kind of like to recommend that those are useful, especially as we get into some of the harder topics later in the semester. All right, so that's kind of the plan. Oh, notice the exams. So exam 1 is on Monday, February 11th. We usually do a review session the day before. Those are optional. So we can only require you to come to class so many times, right? So I do these review sessions, and it's up to you if you want to come. Because I'm requiring you to come the next night to take an exam, so I can't require you to be here for the review session, right? So that's why I'm calling those optional. As often as possible, I try to give you a day off to make up for the fact that we came the night before. We'll give you the next day off. But later in the class, you'll see that sometimes we can't do that. So like after midterm 2, we have a really easy day. It's the next day. You just show up, no homework. You don't do anything. You just show up that day. And we'll actually postpone those assignments till the next day. And after midterm 3, we just kind of show up and do a quick review the next day. All right, so that's the schedule. And as you look through it, please let me know if you have any questions. But now I want to take you over to MBC and show you how it works. All right, so I actually did the practice reading assessment quiz. I'll come back to that in just a minute. So when you log into MBC, in fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to completely log out and log back in. All right, so when you get to MBC, I've actually taught with several different books, so you won't see this screen. But anyway, you should have this logo right here because that's the book for our class. So you'll click the little green bar below. That will log you in. I've already logged in, so the first time you log in, you have to put your user ID and your password. Right? Mine just kind of logs me in automatically. And I've taught this class before, so I have two different ones, but we'll take the red one here. Okay, just keep following the green arrows. Okay, once you log in, this is what the front page looks like. Now, just understand I'm an instructor, so I see a little more than you actually do, but it will look pretty much like this. This is your home screen, and there's a menu over here on the left. This is where you find things, so I'm just in the home screen right now. You can close that menu just by clicking on menu, and it goes away, or you click it again and it comes back. Okay, but most of the time, you're going to want to find things using this. Now, I'm going to first of all start on the home screen and just kind of describe what's here for you. So right at the top, we have, oh, sorry. My TA's been helping me, and I guess we forgot to post it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the syllabus goes up here. There we go. All right, so there's the syllabus. If you lost my email, then you have a copy of the syllabus. Every day after class, this is going to be important. I'm going to show you my slides for the day, and I will post a copy of them here. So when you go back to study, you're going to take notes in class, but this might be a helpful thing just to print them out. And then as you prepare for the quiz the next day in class, you can kind of review those quickly before you get here. So post-class slides are important. Oh, by the way, I started to describe this. When you walk in every day, you're going to pick up a handout. One side of the handout gives you an alphabetical listing of where you sit, right, the group number. When you turn it over, it has the exercises we're going to work in class. Some of those days, those exercises are super helpful in preparing for the exam. Right? I'm trying to focus in class, our class time, on the topics that I'm going to be testing on the exams. So a lot of times you're going to want to go print those handouts out again and rework those problems on your own as you prepare for the next midterm, right? And so I will post every day in this little subfolder right here all the class handout for that day. So later, if we're having an exam on the first 5 days of class, then you want to go back and review the slides and the handouts for those days to make sure you're ready. Okay, what else do we have here? Annual reports. Sometimes in class, I'm going to have you pull up target company's actual financial reports for the day. So if you have a laptop, you can pull it up in your group and go over it. I've got a list of private accounting tutors. I don't normally recommend people do that. I want you to use the accounting lab. It's free. But if you're one of those people that just want to have your guy or your gal that's your person to go to, then you can look up those private accounting tutors. By the way, if you've ordered your book and they're shipping it to you and you haven't received it yet, we got to move on with the class. So chapters 1 and 2, I've got a link here. You can actually just view them digitally if you want to be able to read those first 2 chapters. So that link is there for you. And most people don't get stressed about this. Remember I told you, you walk in the door, you pick up the handout, and it tells you you're in group 24 or group 36 or whatever. Some people want to know that in advance. And if you're one of those people, fine. We'll post it in advance if you want to know what group you're in that day. And we also have a map of the room, right? So I'll tell you this one. This is kind of a useful thing to know. This map right here is the one I just showed you, the map of the classroom. If you show up late someday and it's like, crap, you get here and I've already taken it down from the screen. I don't know where group 36 is. You don't want people like yelling, 36, 36. So if you want to print out a copy of the map so you have it in your backpack, you can do that. All right, so that's the seating. Group projects, these won't appear for you. So I'm showing you the group projects here. We have group project 1 and group project 2. These are kind of, see how they're kind of transparent? So it means that I see them as the instructor, you don't see them yet. We'll turn those on just a little before you're going to actually start working on them. Okay, so they will be posted there. And then finally down at the bottom, I posted them this morning. The practice exams are already here. So as we start getting closer to midterm 1, midterm 2, midterm 3, you're going to want to download these, maybe print them out and actually start working through them so you can get ready for the exams. Okay, I can't overemphasize how important it is to practice in advance because the level of rigor of these exams tends to really shock people. So you want to come into it with your eyes wide open. You want to be able to practice those midterms, leave yourself plenty of time because you may need to work them more than one time. All right? I know I'm being repetitive today, but I want to make sure this is like the only day people pay attention. And so hopefully you'll really have this all down. Okay, the last thing I want to mention here is going back to the syllabus. So in the syllabus, as I was pointing out, it tells you what's due on a particular day, right? So for example, next Thursday, a week from today, what are you going to do? You're going to read chapter 2, pages 58 through 67, and chapter 4, pages 188 to 197, right? So you'll do that reading, and then you've got to do a reading assessment quiz. This is the first time that you do a reading assessment quiz that actually counts toward your grade, right? RA number 1. Well, the question is, where do I find that on MBC? Well, here's the key. It's usually located on the same row with the chapter that it's in. So we're reading chapter 2 that day. We're also reading chapter 4. That's what I'm going to show you. So that's where you're going to find it. So I'm going to go back over to MBC. All right. So in MBC, on your left-hand toolbar over here, for example, if you go to chapter 1, and if you scroll down here, so what's available for you? So some of you buy the e-book, then you have the reading. Here's the actual book, the e-book chapter. Then you have those e-lectures that I said are kind of boring. So you can watch those videos if you want. And then down here, I told you that the guided examples are the ones that are useful. So these guided examples you might find useful because it's one of the textbook authors walking you through practice problems. And then down below, at the very bottom, if you scroll all the way down, So here's the practice RA that you're going to do for next Tuesday. And I'm the only person that will ever click on this one. We're going to do an in-class sample RA quiz right in just a couple minutes. Okay, so you don't do this one at all, and you'll do this one for practice next Tuesday. All right, but let me go back over here, Chapter 2. So if you go to Chapter 2, you scroll all the way down to the bottom. What's down there? Oh, we've got RA quiz number 1, RA quiz number 2, homework number 1, and homework number 2, because all of those are related to which chapter? Chapter 2, right? So again, they're located next to the chapter that they go with, right? So I usually I get 50 emails the first day. I'm trying to head that off. This is how you find those RA quizzes. You're going to click on the chapter that it goes with and scroll all the way down to the bottom. All right, any questions about that? Yes?
On the syllabus, the readings, let's say for session 3, it said like page 58. Do we have to have that read before we come to class?
Exactly. So very good question. I'm going to click back over here. So on a particular day, let's pick session 6, right? Oops, session 7. So on session 7, notice we're going in order here. We go chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. We've done some for chapter 4. All of a sudden, we skip to chapter 12. What should you do that day, right? So the day when you come into class on January 31st, before you come, you should have read these pages in chapter 12, 576 to 591. There's a few pages also in the appendix. And then you should do RA quiz 4. So those are things that are due before you come to class that day. All right, good question. All right, any other questions about just the syllabus? Yes?
On my syllabus, it had a different location of the lab than what you had.
Okay. You know what? I wonder if I messed it up. Let me go back up. Oops, I'm supposed to be looking at the syllabus. I don't have the syllabus here. Oh.
It was on the, you had the...
Yeah, it was right here. Yeah.
And that says B202, but then there was another one that said B311.
Okay. This is actually, I'm going to repost the syllabus. We used to have the accounting lab upstairs right next to our accounting faculty, and they've kicked us out. They put us in a bigger room downstairs. So this is actually the place. So when you walk into Moore Rooker Hall, right across the street, well, where are we here? It's that way. When you walk across Lumpkin into the business learning community, you're going to come in at what's the second floor. And when you walk in, it's actually on the Whole Street side is Moore Rooker Hall, and on the Lumpkin side is Benson Hall. The middle building is Amos. So when you come into Amos, you're at the second floor, and it's on that far side next to Moore Rooker Hall. Okay, room 202 is where the accounting lab is. Go by there sometime this week just so you know where it is. They won't officially open until next Wednesday. So I'll send out an email. By the way, guys, please check your email at least once a day. And I don't mean to bombard you, but I'm probably going to email you a couple of times a week with information about the class. So just try to stay on top of those, because sometimes something important has to be announced, and sometimes people don't pay attention. So please watch your emails. Okay, thanks for pointing that out. So I'm going to repost the syllabus. The one that I emailed you still had the old room number, so that was my bad. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so before I turn you loose today, I want to actually walk you through a sample RA quiz. So let's see how well you've been paying attention today. How about that? So again, next Tuesday, you're going to do this one that says Practice RA. That's the one you guys do. I'm going to take you into what I'm calling the sample. It's just for in-class purposes only, the sample RA. Okay, so I'm going to click into this. And remember, you get 2 attempts, right? I already took it this morning, and I purposely missed some, because I want you to understand that if you miss some, it's okay. You can go back and go through it again. And if you know which ones you missed, you can go back and say, oh, now I know. You can look up the answer. Because the idea is you want to get these 100% right by the time you've taken it your second time. All right, so I've already done one attempt, and I got 6 out of 10 right. Oh, I'm a slacker, right? I didn't study. I didn't read very closely. I'm a slacker. I got 6 out of 10. So I'm going to go back and, I can review what I screwed up. So if I go back and review it, I say, I missed number 2. and I missed number 6, and I missed number 8, and I missed number 9. By the way, this isn't timed, and these are open book, right? So you can look up the answers, guys. So first time through, go back and note which ones you missed. You know which ones they are. Then as you go through it this time, be careful. Don't miss them the second time. Make sure you get them right. So we're going to go back in. Write these down for me so we don't screw them up the second time through. Okay, so we missed number 2, number 6, number 8, and number 9. So we're going to get them right. Okay, so I'm done reviewing. Oh, and you can look at the actual questions and go look up the answers. All right, but we're gonna do this together. Okay. Okay, so here we go. All right, so question number 1. You should read assigned pages in the chapter, A, after the chapter is taught in class, B, prior to the initial class discussion on the topic, C, exactly 3 weeks and 2 days and 3 hours after the material is taught, or only right before the test. When should you read the chapters? B, prior to the initial class discussion on the topic, right? Let's go to the next one. The accounting lab is open 24 hours every day of the week, only for graduate level accounting courses, to students by appointment in accounting 1 and 2, or to all students in accounting 1 and 2 from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, it's kind of screwed up because I forgot to change it, but you get the idea, right? We're going to change the hours this semester, and it's not in B311, it's in B202. All right, so we'll pick the right answer. Question number 3. When will exams be held? In the evening, during class, early in the morning before classes, or trick question, there are no exams? Okay, they're going to be in the evening. Very good. Which of the following is not a part of your grade? Reading assessment quizzes, homework, mandatory non-comprehensive final, special projects, in-class quizzes, midterms, and class participations. Trick question. You guys picked it up. What was wrong with this one? It's not mandatory, and it's also comprehensive, right? Okay. Question 5. Oh, sorry, guys. Question 5. Which of the following is true about the final? It's an open book and open no final. You will not be allowed to use a calculator. It's optional. And it's non-comprehensive. Okay, so it is optional. Hopefully you're doing well, right? You've got an A going into the final, so you don't need to bother taking it. Question 6. All of the following are true about homework except what? So homework must be completed by 7 a.m. on the day that it's assigned. Homework is as 10% of your grade. You'll be allowed to attempt each assignment 4 times, or the lowest 2 scores on homework will be dropped. Okay, we actually dropped the lowest 2. Which one did you say?
Wait, except.
Oh, except, sorry. Okay, we only get to attempt it twice. Homework, so I think it's not 10% of your grade. Oh, true except, sorry. Yeah, you can only get it 2 times. There we go. I can't read from here, sorry. Question 7. The in-class quizzes will be announced. True or false? So they're pretty much every day. So yeah, I guess it's kind of announced, right? Well, I'm not gonna like email you and say, by the way, there's a quiz tomorrow. So in that sense, I guess it's false. All right. I don't remember. I made this question several years ago. Did we miss 7 before? We didn't. Okay, I think that's what we put. What are the reading assessment quizzes? They're straightforward online quizzes to assess whether you have read the chapter before class. They're extensive quizzes on obscure details in the textbook. They're quizzes that are worth 20% of your grade. They're pop quizzes that are taken during class. Straightforward. If you did the reading, you should get them right. We're almost there, guys. Number 9, what is the website that we use for this class? Google.com, My Business Course, accountingisfun.edu, or ELC? B, there we go. And last but not least, which of the following is allowed? Working in groups to discuss the homework assignment, using material from prior terms not made available by your instructor, splitting up the homework assignment and then copying each other's answers, or taking pictures of your test and adding them to your Snapchat story in hopes that someday you may snap you the answer, whatever. So you are allowed to work in groups when you're working on homework. Okay, so submit and finish. Hey, we got them all right. Hey, good job, class. Okay, hold on. All right, so guys, hold on. Before I let you go, for next class, then you're supposed to read the syllabus, read those pages in Chapter 1, and do the practice RA, just like we just did. It won't count against you, but I want you to know how to navigate the system. If any of you have any questions, please stick around after class, and I look forward to getting to know you better and starting on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.